This message comes from U.S. Bank. Simplify how you do business with Business Essentials, a powerful combination of no monthly maintenance fee checking and card payment processing. Deposit products are offered by U.S. Bank National Association, member FDIC.
All right, y'all. We are just 2 weeks into January, but already this year has been eventful. There's Trump's attack on Venezuela, or last week's ICE shooting in Minneapolis, which led to protests all across the country over the weekend. And these protests on the street are connected to what I want to talk about today: a new era of protest music online.
You probably don't need to shoot someone in the face to do the thing that you're calling a job.
This past year in particular, there's been an uptick where I feel like every time there's a really big thing happening in the news, ICE raids, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, these have all been moments where I've seen a lot of people use songs, and in particular these very folk, plain-spoken, guitar-driven songs on social media as a way to kind of respond to these moments.
This trend is kind of surprising to me. When I think of protest music, I think of Pete Seeger, Joan Baez. Their heydays were more than half a century ago. Here's Isabella Gomez Sarmiento, reporter for NPR Music, who wrote a story on this trend.
It's like a throwback to what we think of as Vietnam War, singer-songwriter era protest music.
So why is this new version of protest music going viral?
Stomp Clap 2.0 era is here. We had the Lumineers and Mumford & Sons. This is the new version of that, I feel like.
Who needs evidence when your pal's the president and you're standing with the great wizard of all?
Hello, hello. I'm Brittany Luce, and you're listening to It's Been a Minute from NPR, a show about what's going on in culture and why it doesn't happen by accident. So first, I want to know, who are some artists that you've been watching that you spoke to for your story? What are the kinds of things they're singing about?
Yeah, there's three main artists that I've been sort of keeping tabs on. The first one is Jesse Wells. He's an Arkansas singer-songwriter. He's often compared to Woody Guthrie, Bob Dylan. His whole thing is singing the news. So he's cranking these songs out. He's made songs about what's happening in Gaza, about the Trump administration's trying to draw links between Tylenol use and autism.
Tylenol, our problems start with Tylenol. I'm so glad we found the one and only cause of it all.
There's two other artists. One of them is Monrovia. He's an Afro-Appalachian singer that also has this very sort of earthy folk sound. His music is really about identity in a lot of ways, but also protests oppression and the government and a lack of collective care and empathy in today's society.
Do you see the man on the street just fighting for a meal to eat? You can write him off as a lunatic, but it could have been you or me.
And then the third one is Jensen McRae. She's an indie rock folk singer of the 21st century. And, she's open for Muna and Noah Khan. And she's a folk artist with a more acoustic pop angle.
As long as I live, I'll remember the names of your favorite.
But she's also released a few protest songs on her social media channels that aren't, they're not on her albums. She's just someone who will respond to something big happening in the news by writing these songs and posting them directly on TikTok and Instagram.
We say lay down your weapons, you tighten up your aim. Kill brown folks with impunity, and we keep chanting their names. We say lay down.
I wonder also, too, in thinking about the kind of music that, each of these artists make, right? It feels like there's, aesthetically some overlap there between, this kind of folk protest music and country music. And country music is, so popular right now.
I feel like this very folky Americana thing is having a really big moment. And because it is aesthetically reminiscent of that, 60s, 70s Bob Dylan, Joan Baez thing. I think it only makes sense that we're also getting people who are adding a political layer back into that music with this aesthetic.
So it's like the aesthetic is already kind of like coming back. And given our political climate where so many people are feeling upset, it makes sense that a political message would also come and emerge at the same time. It's like the music aesthetically is kind of begging for it. And also like the times are kind of begging for it in a lot of people's minds as well.
Exactly, yeah. And it's like an accessible thing too, you know? I think it's a lot easier to write a few lines and play it on your guitar and record yourself and put it on TikTok than it is to produce a whole song. I think it's accessible from a creator's standpoint and also as an audience member. Like, I think these are very straightforward lyrics that are very clear and explicit about what they're talking about.
That folk music, protest music sound. Pete Seeger or like Joan Baez. Why do you think that kind of musical style became less popular until now? Because I will say, like, I know that people like Joan Baez and literally Pete Seeger. Like, Pete Seeger was playing, I feel like up until the day he died, he was playing at whatever protest would have him still. But still, that musical style was not like the style of the day, you know, for a long time. Why do you think that kind of musical style became less popular? And why do you think it's coming back now?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question because I think, to your point, like those artists who were making that music never really went away. Joan Baez performed with Jesse Wells recently. She joined him on stage. Like, those people have still been around. And there's been new generations that have obviously kept making folk music, protest music, you name it. But I think after the 60s and 70s, when there was that heyday of, you know, protests for civil rights, protests against the Vietnam War, all of this sort of social change happening in the country, the music industry really started to change. This is a question I asked musicologist Tammy Kernodle. She also teaches at Miami University. And this is what she told me.
When we started to move into the last decades of the 20th century and the first decade of the 21st century, is that those messages started to be filtered out because of the infrastructure and how music became so vastly commodified because of its globalization. The industry began to work against it.
So, you know, like the 70s, the 80s, you start to see the rise of like MTV and capital P pop music. And like this folk protest music doesn't really go away, but it becomes way less central to like mainstream culture. And I will say, you know, there's definitely a lot of politics in other kinds of music. Like pop music is political in its own way. And you have the rise of all of these genres like, you know, hip hop, and into the 90s and 2000s, you have reggaeton and all of this music that, you know, pushes for a lot of political and social change. But it just doesn't really have that same aesthetic as, you know, the really folk guitar, singer-songwriting protest music.
I think about the Chicks. They're not folk, you know, per se. They're really pop country, but they were really, really vocal about their stance on the invasion of Iraq and their opposition to the president at that time, George W. Bush, who was also from Texas, like the Chicks. They famously said that he made them feel ashamed to be from Texas. And a lot of stations stopped playing their music.
Yeah, I think we start to see a lot of backlash in the 2000s whenever artists are willing to take that kind of a political stance and especially make music that is infused with those politics. You know, I think what happened to the Chicks and the backlash that they received is something that we see generations fear for decades. Like Taylor Swift talks about that in her documentary Miss Americana, how she was so scared to, you know, take a stance or align herself with any political party because of what had happened to the Chicks. And artists get told to kind of stay in their lane if they want to be successful.
Shut up and sing.
Exactly. Shut up and sing.
The other thing I think about too is like, you know, protest music is not necessarily sponsor or investor friendly. And I feel like so much of surviving in the music industry is playing really nice with those two groups of people. But still, you know, something that I've noticed a lot is that even if people aren't making explicit protest music, there's still a desire from people for some type of music to take that role. Like I think about All Right by Kendrick Lamar, right? Like that's a commercial song, but it got refashioned for protest, specifically in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. It's something that I think people still have an appetite for and still find that they need in times of protest.
Totally, yeah, because I mean, it's not like we stopped protesting from the 70s to now. I think it's really important that you bring up someone like Kendrick Lamar and BLM because I think rap, it carries the torch of social protest, I think, for the past 2 decades. And now what we're seeing is that, you know, even having a pop artist like Beyonce, right, reclaim her roots on Cowboy Carter, or having Bad Bunny reclaim his roots with this last album, Debí Tirar Más Fotos, like those things are protests in their own way. But I think, like you're saying, they have to strike a really fine balance of how they're sort of both commercial and also sending a specific message to an audience that can sort of interpret it, in a way that feels meaningful to them. Like, I think we've seen both of those albums sort of, they speak to a particular community, but they can also sort of resonate across a lot of different issues and across a lot of different meanings. They're not as like topical as some of these protest songs.
Coming up,
something that we have yet to see is how much that raising consciousness of this era of protest music really translates into pushing for social change.
Stick around.
This message comes from Whole Foods Market. Follow your wellness goals and save big with sales on supplements and vitamins. Explore an abundance of high-quality multivitamins, probiotics, and protein powders. Keep good habits going strong. Cook homemade meals featuring sustainable wild-caught sockeye salmon and many more delicious and lean protein options. For wellness when you need it, shop Smart Meal shortcuts to stay motivated, like ready-to-eat salad kits. Shop all things wellness at Whole Foods Market.
This message comes from LinkedIn, who knows how even one hiring nightmare can ruin your small business dreams. That's why LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant uses insights from over 1 billion professionals to create a personalized shortlist of the best applicants, and even finds candidates you would have otherwise missed, so you can hire right the first time. Start hiring with LinkedIn and post your job for free today at linkedin.com/NPR.
This message comes from MIDI Health, a virtual care platform for women in perimenopause and menopause. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Kathleen Jordan shares the wide range of symptoms they work to address for women in midlife.
There's dry eyes, there's dry hair, there's dry skin, there's dry mouth, trouble sleeping, there's panic and anxiety attacks. And at MIDI, when we ask patients about common symptoms, on average, they report 6.
Discover how MIDI can help care for you at joinmidi.com.
Why do you think this style of music is getting popular on social media, though?
Today, it's like most of us get our information from the internet. I think we're all so plugged in all the time and kind of overwhelmed with information. Like, I think in a certain way, this sort of very slow, just a guitar and a voice kind of cuts through that noise and is sometimes able to hold people's attention in a different way. Like, it's very much at odds with how quick things move on the algorithm. And this is something I also asked Tammy Kernodle about, because I was curious as to why is it this particular aesthetic that's sort of making a comeback at this particular time? And this is what she said to me.
We are moved into a society who wants to read less. So most of us are getting our information, from this very visual culture, TikTok and Instagram and all of these things, right? But, music is also underscored. So these individuals are doing what their predecessors did, but in a different digital platform.
And I think there she's also talking about how, like in the 1930s and 40s, folk protest music was a really big way. Like, people would gather in a town hall or at like labor union meetings and sing about their frustrations and sing about their struggles. And in a different way, that's kind of what someone is doing when, you're upset by seeing news of ICE raids, or you're upset, by how people are talking about the Charlie Kirk assassination online. So you like turn on your front-facing camera and play a guitar and sing about how you're feeling.
Charlie shouldn't have died. Well, you can't hate the gun and love the gun that shot your rival.
Like, there's this very strange parallel to, I think, how people used to express their frustrations through folk music 100 years ago and how they're doing that right now.
Whether it's the song or someone who's really good at putting together like a short, snappy political message, I wonder if those are like a way of kind of like cutting through the noise of like the endless political spin that we obviously see on social media and pretty much every other channel of media that we have access to as people.
Totally. I mean, I think that must be the appeal for some of the people who are listening to this music. And I agree, like, we are in sort of this like secondhand information economy where a lot of times we're hearing about things through this filtered voice that has already interpreted and analyzed it for us. There's all these different echo chambers online, right? And I think maybe sometimes what these songs are trying to do is get to the root of why are people frustrated, and how at the end of the day, there might be a lot more common ground than people realize when they're just ingesting things through a partisan viewpoint. And this is something I was asking Monrovia about, because he's someone who makes very personal protest music. Like I was saying, a lot of it has to do with his identity and his background. He's from Liberia and he's making Appalachian music. But I asked him about this and he told me like, he's not trying to make capital P protest music. That's just sort of the label that it takes on.
And I think the important piece about protest music or protest art is the truth factor. And I think it becomes protest because we put that word around it. But really, it's just a search for the truth and to reveal it and to say it as it is and not beat around the bush.
So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times these songs maybe help things feel more personal. So it feels less like they're coming from talking heads with a political agenda, you know? But I think there's a humanity and a relatability to a person with a banjo or a guitar expressing how they're feeling and expressing why they're upset or expressing, you know, how they view social and economic injustices in our country right now. What surprised me across the board was like Jesse Wells, Monrovia, and Jensen McRae, all of them were like, I want people to sort of find unity and find community through this anger and to feel optimism that things are going to get better. Ultimately, sometimes this kind of folk protest music helps underline that people's frustrations are coming from similar places. Like people feel disempowered, people feel hopeless, people are struggling to afford necessities and healthcare. And yet partisan lines sort of pit them up against one another. And it seems like that's sort of the message that they're trying to carry and help people just see more the humanity in each other in a certain way.
Okay, so this music is getting, you know, popularized on lots of platforms, you know, but these platforms, whether they're social media platforms or music stream platforms. I mean, you know, last year Spotify ran ICE recruitment ads.
Yeah.
You can hear their statement about this at the end of the episode. And TikTok became like a political pawn for the Trump administration. They kept the platform from being banned and are helping facilitate a deal on its sale. A lot of these companies do things that many artists are protesting as well. Like, has any tension come up for these artists that you interviewed about like where people are finding their music and engaging with it?
Yeah, it's a good question because they are definitely, I think, platforms that artists seem to have some moral misalignment with from time to time.
You just recently did a story about how there are many artists who are leaving Spotify because they disagree with whether it's their business practices or their politics.
Exactly. Yeah, I think there's been a lot of criticism of these platforms from many artists. This is the thing. When I asked the artists that I talked to for this story, this particular question and, you know, what their relationship with these platforms is like, since it's something that, you know, it's helped them gain this huge reach and really distill their message to a wide audience. But it seems like it's kind of complicated for them because, like, in a way, you know, an app like TikTok or Instagram or Spotify can be a huge tool for music discovery and for helping people who have maybe been traditionally shut out of the music industry sort of reach new audiences and sort of launch their own careers. But it can also shut a lot of voices out. And there does tend to be a feeling that like there is some kind of censorship on these apps. There's so much that we don't know about how these apps work and how the algorithm works and how it prioritizes the content. So there are imperfect tools. And I think the artists are perfectly aware of that. But I think they're trying to use them to the best of their ability because at the end of the day, they do change people's careers. I mean, Jesse Wells, you know, started making these videos on TikTok and now he's nominated for 4 Grammys. And he's an independent artist. Like it really can sort of put you in front of an audience that would never have access to you otherwise. But there is a trade-off. Like you're absolutely right. I think it's a very complicated thing. And it seems like the artists themselves are sort of trying to walk the balance between the ethics of it and then also having this huge tool at their disposal to get their message out.
I wonder, what does it say to you that these artists are gaining followings and that a lot of people are that this like folk protest music is resonating with so many people?
I mean, honestly, I think it shows that a lot of people want to feel heard right now. And a lot of people are looking for a sense of community. Like Tammy Kernodle kept describing this to me, like these folk protest artists on TikTok and the audiences they're finding as digital communities. And, you know, it shows that a lot of people are frustrated by the same things. But I think something that we have yet to see is how much that raising consciousness of this era of protest music really translates into pushing for social change. I think that's been a key factor of protest music in the past, like when we were talking about the 60s, the 70s. Those were times when the music was really used to mobilize people to actually get outside and protest and march and rally and demand change in a material way. And I think that's a lot harder to do when you have these massive numbers, but it's all people independently behind their screens, right? So I think what we have yet to see is like, how is that power going to translate to something tangible in the world? Or maybe it also opens up to like, there's just digital kinds of activism that people are doing now. I don't know, but that's sort of the question that I keep coming back to.
Yeah, it kind of remains to be seen how much this music actually gets people to act, to actually maybe get out and protest. Isabella, I really appreciate you having this conversation with me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. I'd love to talk about it anytime.
That was Isabella Gomez Sarmiento, reporter for NPR Music. You can find her story about these artists on npr.org. And about those ICE ads on Spotify, in a statement to NPR from December, Spotify said that DHS ads have run on other services, that their platform supports a wide range of perspectives, and that listeners can like or dislike specific ads. The company recently told NPR that the ads stopped running in late 2025. So you all know I love hearing from you. And over the past few weeks, some of you have left the sweetest notes for me in the comments and reviews. One of y'all wrote, "This is my favorite podcast produced by NPR." Me too. Another wrote, "Thanks for enriching my life." You guys, I'm blushing. And if any of those comments resonate with you, I would love, love, love it if you rated and reviewed this show wherever you're listening. It helps other people find the show, and that means this community we're building will get even bigger. So join the team. Rate and review this show right now. And thank you. This episode of It's Been a Minute was produced by
Liam McBain.
This episode was edited by
Nina Patak.
Engineering support came from
Damian Herring.
Our supervising producer is
Barton Girdwood.
Our executive producer is
Verilyn Williams.
Our VP of programming is
Yolanda Sanguini.
All right, that's all for this episode of It's Been a Minute from NPR. I'm Brittany Luce. Talk soon.
This message comes from Jerry. Are you tired of your car insurance rate going up, even with a clean driving record? That's why there's Jerry, your proactive insurance assistant. Jerry compares rates side by side from over 50 top insurers and helps you switch with ease. Jerry even tracks market rates and alerts you when it's best to shop. No spam calls, no hidden fees. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Switch with confidence. Download the Jerry app or visit jerry.ai/NPR today. Support for NPR and the following message come from Spectrum Business, providing connectivity solutions to help your business stay online and on track. From small shops to remote teams, Spectrum Business offers reliable connections, responsive support, and tailored solutions. Learn more at spectrum.com/business.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Capella University. Interested in a quality online education? Capella is accredited by the Higher Learning Commission. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.